The idea is the habit of saying no equals to saying yes to yourself.
Saying no is not a wall, it's a filter. It's a filter that allows you to compound everything that you truly and utterly hold true and consider to be valuable to your life.
With bosses, you have to figure out this thing called upward delegation. So how do you make your boss do the thing that they have told you to do, right? So you upward delegate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Compounding Mindset, brought to you by Access Mutual Fund. I'm Paridhi Doshi, your movement and fitness coach, but don't you worry, we still got Ashdin Doctor with us, our resident habit coach.
So Paridhi, now that we're doing this podcast together, do I get free coaching sessions from you?
No.
So do you have a problem with saying no, or saying no comes easily to you?
I think this is definitely something that I had to work on and develop over time. I definitely had my fair bit of struggles with saying no, like you just saw me think and try to come up with a much more creative way. But no, I think this is something I have learned over time.
Because saying no is one of the hardest things people do. In fact, I keep getting messages from people all the time saying, Ashdin, how do I say no to things? And you're saying that you've kind of cracked this. Over the years, what was the way in which you figured out how to start saying no to things?
I think initially people say it on your behalf when you're a kid, so you don't really have that stress of having to actually say no because your parents take the call for it. But I see saying no as a choice to advance towards a certain goal, a certain activity, or it could be anything that you actually really want to do. So instead of thinking of it as as having a negative connotation in your head, we'd be like what would people think? Do I really want to do this? Do I really want to say no? I think of it as a very conscious choice that I need to make if I want to actually dictate my time, my energy, my effort into things that I truly and actually want to do. So I think it's sort of goal oriented for me.
So I think it's a very interesting way of thinking about it. So as soon as you have a goal, saying no becomes easier.
I think so because then you have that priority, right? Your energy is directed in a certain direction, and I think it just then becomes slightly so easier to make that choice to have to say no.
Many people feel saying no is very hard because they wonder, will people start disliking me? What will people think of me? How do I actually start looking at myself? Or how do I actually say no to somebody without insulting them? So Paridhi, you had a clear goal while growing up. Did that make it easier to say no?
I think I learned to say no at that point of time, because definitely for the first 10 years of my life, I've just been training professionally to be a track and field athlete, correct? So you
had a very clear goal.
I had a very
What
clear
was your
goal.
clear goal that you
Clear
had?
goal was to make it to nationals, right? That means having the right food, having the right training, just like finishing off your studies and going to sleep. So no slumber parties are happening there. But also I feel
And
that
people called you boring and people called you
100%.
everything.
I don't have to count the number of friends I had left by the time I left school, only because I said that much no. But it was also, I feel, normalized for me because my coaches, my parents, all of them made it feel okay to say no because I had a certain goal.
Correct.
It's all right. You don't want to eat a certain junk food and fast food tonight because probably you got to run tomorrow morning in training and everything's going to come up. But I think it was also the people around me that made it so much easier for me and normalized it for me to be like, hey, if you have a goal, it's absolutely okay. Has your journey of saying no, hey, is it easy for you to say no?
It was very hard because I grew up as a people pleaser. So as a people pleaser, you are constantly worrying about how people are going to think of you, how people are going to react if you say no. So I started saying yes to everything. And as a result, I realized that every time I said yes, it was diluting my life. So it was the exact opposite of our compounding that we are talking about. Every time you said no, you were compounding towards your goal. Every time I said yes, I was diluting my goal. But for me, it was, what will people think? Will people like me? Will people not like me? And I had to figure out how to say no so that it wasn't insulting to somebody, or how to say no where in my mind I was still okay with that after effect. So then I came up with a few strategies. You know how I am as a habit coach, so everything has to have a 3-step method of how to get it done. So I had my own 3-step method of how to say no. So the first one was to say no clearly. Very often what happens is that you think you've said no, but the other person hasn't registered the no, because you've gone all around the bush saying, oh, maybe, if I, etc., etc., and the other person thinks you've said yes, and in your head you've said no, and there's one big communication gap. So the first part is say that no very clearly. The second part is don't leave that person hanging. So no, and walk away. So when we say no, it's not about saying no and walking away. It is about saying no. And the third step is give a solution for that. So I'm sorry, I can't do this for you today. I have to go for a movie. But I know X, Y, and Z can do this for you. So what you've done is you've said no very clearly, and you've then given a solution for what that person can do. So that person is not left hanging. This is something that I have figured out as a way of creating this habit of saying no, and it has completely transformed my life. What are things that you feel saying no to is much harder?
I feel like saying no to things that, especially the people that are close to you, deem really, really important, because then it's not about just you, it's also about making sure that these are people that you care about, that you value in your life, right? These are people you want to grow with or spend time with. And when that sort of clashes with your personal goal, I think that's somewhere where I find it really hard to say no. But I also do think that saying no and saying yes has to happen in balance. There are going to be times where you'll have to take a step back to what your goal has to be and do something which you might have usually on a day said no to. But hey, you know that somebody is important. Like, I'm not going to miss my best friend's birthday party because, well, I'm going to have to stay up till 1 in the morning. I'll figure out my life around it. But that's part of life, right? You have to show up for your people and you have to say yes there. But I also feel that when you say yes to these things, it only sort of puts you forward on your path of goal, because now you also know what saying yes feels like, and if that truly, actually, utterly aligns with you. So I think saying yes is also important, just to know and to recognize when to say no.
I love it. So you say yes once and no 5 times, and you know what that yes means and that impact of that yes on your life.
Yes.
So you might stay awake till 1 o'clock because it's your best friend's birthday, but you won't do it twice a week.
Exactly.
They might have 2 parties, but you'll say, I will stay awake for only one of these parties. So you've drawn your boundaries and you've created that aspect of value in your life.
And as you also said, right, solution. So maybe I'm not going to say no to not going to that second party, but I'll be like, hey, I'm going to come in at 8:30. I'm going to be there for 10 because you matter. But I've created that boundary where I'm also not sacrificing what I want to do with my time, with my energy, but I'm still showing up for people. So as you pointed out in your last point, creating a solution rather than just saying like abruptly no and just leaving that space.
And I think the beauty of it is that slowly when you start saying no and you've created this boundary, you've created a certain value in yourself. And what happens is that people start slowly respecting that value and it becomes a part of your identity. So the first few times people invited me for dinner at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, I quickly, politely said, listen, no, I will not be coming for dinner. Till they realize that I eat dinner at 7. And I cannot eat dinner at 9:30 because I'm fast asleep by 10:30. So then we came to a compromise saying, acha, okay, maybe we'll call him at 8 o'clock. And that identity shift was so important. So then people started changing their lives around it. I started changing my lives around them, and a sort of compromise was arrived at. I think saying no gives you that ability.
It also makes it so much clearer for you as to who are the sort of people you want to surround yourself with. Because at the end of the day, you're going to spend your time there. You're going to spend your energy there. You're going to spend your ideation there, right? Those are the people that you're actually going to pick bits and pieces and grow with. And if that's going to keep compounding over time, it's also going to make you who you are 10 years down the lane. So it's sort of, it's not a wall. Saying no is not a wall. It's a filter. It's a filter that allows you to compound everything that you truly and utterly hold true and consider to be valuable to your life.
This reminds me of this meme that I saw that said that normalize having busy friends who are not always free to meet you, because it's those busy friends that are actually doing things in their life and getting somewhere. So it's okay to have friends who you might not meet all the time because they're busy and you are busy. You know, having the right kind of friend circle makes such a difference, especially in your compounding journey that is there. There's a beautiful another meme that I read, and in fact, this reminds me of a podcast that I'd done where I said the idea is the habit of saying no equals to saying yes to yourself. So every time you say no to somebody else, you're technically saying yes to yourself. And this again ties in with our self worth. Very often, our self worth is so low because we have not invested in saying yes to ourselves over and over and over and putting ourselves slightly ahead of the decision curve. So I think saying yes to ourselves is such a critical thing.
So critical, and like both of these things, right? It's not selfish, it's strategic. It's strategic because now you're taking all of this time, you're taking all of this effort, you're taking all of your resources, and you're growing and you're compounding day by day. And as you said, the meme that you saw, that it's good to have busy friends, because these busy friends now, when you spend that tiny bit of a time, when you use your yes correctly, it's going to be so much more value creation in that 1 hour maybe that you've spent in a month, instead of having to say yes every single time and not really having that value being compounded to your life over those small time periods that you're actually going to spend with them.
When it comes to saying yes to things, you know, especially with our finances, it's so easy to get lost in all the kind of information that is coming to you. We were talking about you're young, and I'm sure people are constantly telling you, now that you're earning so much money, you should invest here, there, etc. How do you filter all of that out and know where you should be doing things?
Literally all the time, like every single person. I feel like there's one person telling me in one day that this is the stock you should buy, this is where you need to invest, this is what you should do with your money. And all of them sound so short term because they just think that, hey, she's young, you know what, let's just like try to see what she can do with her money. I'm like, no, I'm young. Literally, why I should be making sure that I am investing smartly, that I'm relying on credible resources, so that 10 years down the line, when all of this has to compound day in and day out, it is about that long term consistency that I'm looking at. It's not about today. It's about doing all of these things so that tomorrow can look a whole lot better.
I love what you said. I read somewhere that looking at your finances is all about thinking long term and hence being patient. So every time someone comes and tells you, this short term fix, you're going to make X amount of money quickly. And I look at them, and I have my own now checklist of how to judge whether I should say no to something or not. If it sounds too good to be true, chances are it is not going to be true. So immediately somebody says, you're going to 10x your results in this. I say, listen, Baba, okay, I don't think this is something that makes sense for me. So like this, if you have your principles set on what you're going to be saying yes to and what you're going to be saying no to, it makes a big difference, especially in the way that you look at your finances.
100% does, right? Because you're trying to have all of this money, not right now, not in the present, right? You're trying to see that, hey, what can I do with this tomorrow? What can I do with this day after? And keep on accumulating that, because everybody knows short-term success is a scam. We all know that. It's always about what is it going to look like 10 years down the lane. I feel that's a very good question that people should actually ask themselves. Not now. What happens 5 years down the lane? What happens 10 years down the lane? Is it still going to keep growing the way that it is promising me to grow right now? If the answer is yes, sure. If you have your answers from a credible source, sure. But if that answer is a no, you really would mind to also say no to that.
Yeah, and you have to be so careful on who you listen to. One uncle who comes and gives you advice, or some random influencer telling you about something, it's so critical to actually back it up with your own research and your science. Only then should you start thinking on making a choice.
Absolutely. And check with people. They're there to literally help you do this. So it's not that you don't have the right people around you. You got to pick and say yes to the correct right people around you.
Who do you think are the hardest people to say no to? Normally when I ask this question to groups of people, they say, how do I say no to my boss?
Parents.
Parents, how do I say no to
Parents.
parents? How do you say no to your parents?
I think it's very logical. And then they're fed up of it. I feel, A, my parents are damn understanding, so kudos to them. But I feel, especially to the ones that are close to you, they hold the space where you can actually give them an explanation and be like, I'm really tired. I would not like to come to this wedding party that you are hosting for an uncle I have absolutely no clue about. And they'll be like, okay. So I think my parents are always the toughest, but also the easiest because you have that space to make them understand as to why you don't want to do this. I might rather sleep and get in an early workout tomorrow morning. Sounds very benefiting. So no to wedding party, yes to working out.
Can you imagine how they're going to explain that to their family? Oh, why is Paridhi not coming? Because she has to work out tomorrow.
They actually ask me that question as to like, what am I going to say? I'm like, ask them to phone me.
When it comes to bosses, there was this really funny conversation that we were having saying that with bosses, you have to figure out this thing called upward delegation. So how do you make your boss do the thing that they have told you to do, right? So you upward delegate. And it's so interesting because sometimes you have to say no to what your bosses are doing. And what this does is this creates your boundary. Interestingly, many bosses appreciate that boundary because they know that as soon as you've set a boundary, you've set your worth as well. Very often, we have not set our worth, so we don't know where we stand in the scheme of things. As soon as you set a boundary, you know where your worth is. I often give the example of, we have a farm. We have an 8-acre farm. And I know how much that farm costs because there is a barbed wire fence around it. So I know where my boundary is. If someone encroached upon it and took away an acre, I know that it has diminished my value. So as a result, the boundary is key for understanding and estimating your value. So this is the way in which I've seen, life change. And no is one of the best, almost barbed wire fences that you can create for your life in terms of creating this value.
Absolutely agreed. And also, when somebody does not understand it, I think it's also that time where you question if you owe them an explanation or not, if they have a boundary. Because if they don't have that boundary, if they haven't created that value and that worth for themselves, I don't think they're going to understand why is that no even coming in the first place.
Difficult things, hard things, all these things add value to you.
Always.
So Paridhi, we're going to have a little quick, I want to say rapid fire round because rapid fire rounds are boring. But what is one habit that you use every time you say no to somebody?
So I think pause and reflect works really well because you're taking that time out to either say no or say yes. It doesn't have to be a reaction. It now is much rather a choice.
As soon as you make it a choice and not that knee-jerk reaction. Do you want this? No. Right? Okay. Do I actually want this? Is it going to work with my goals? Then no or then a yes.
Absolutely. Because again, that's a choice. And it's not just you not thinking through it. And it also is empowering, correct? Because you're making a choice to reach at a certain point, to reach at a certain destination, and you know it's going to pay off because you do it day in, day out.
You're not a no robot.
You're not a no robot. What would it be for you, Ashdin?
So for me, the way that I control my environment is a great way of saying no. So when I'm doing my no sugar challenges, what I do is I have cleaned my area of sugar. As soon as I sit on a table, I pick up the sugar pot, in a restaurant, I pick up the sugar pot and pass it to the waiter saying, take it away from me. I have said no right in the beginning, so I don't have the temptation of saying yes later on. So in that way, I've created my environment for these things. So for example, if I have to go work out, what I do is I first wear my shorts and my shoes. That's the easy part. Right, I've already said no to all the distractions, no to the pajamas, no to sitting on the sofa because I've got my exercise shorts on. And this is the way I start controlling my environment. The kinds of people that I have around me, I know are people who are going to support this. For example, if I'm not doing alcohol, I'll say no, the bar is going to be shut. There is no way in which I can control it. So you can say no to people and you can also say no to things. And I think it's very important for us to realize that you can put some of these things on autopilot, the same way that we're doing it for the no sugar challenge, for example. And the word no sugar has no in it. So
Yeah.
it's something that we can start doing in this way as well.
Yeah, this is so much like not buying snacks, so you don't have like junk at home. So you've already set it no on your grocery list only.
Correct.
So it's not there in your environment, and that really works. So
And
that's a great
then
way.
people say, no, but it's needed for the kids. They want it. And then it'll sneak into your house. And where are the snacks kept? Right in front of you on the dining table. And where are all the healthy vegetables kept? In the refrigerator, right below in the chiller, where there is one broccoli that you bought 3 weeks ago that has now long past its due and has turned into a puddle of water. So this is actually how our life works. We need to realize that we need to turn it around. A great way of saying no when you have snacks, and you do have to keep snacks at home in case guests come. You take it and you keep it right above in your pantry where you need a stool to go and retrieve it.
Make it tougher to say yes.
Make it tougher to say yes. Put the oranges out, put the apples out, put the bananas out on the table. Easier to say yes to the things that you want.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Paridhi, this has been a fascinating conversation. We've covered no's when it comes to your physical training and the way that you became an athlete. We spoke about no's when it came to how do you not feel emotionally manipulated by people to say yes. So how do you actually converse that? And how to say no to all your short-term gains, because those seem like too good to be true. Whether it is even physical short-term gains, financial short-term gains, how do you start looking at all these things and say, is it going to be aligned with my goals? If it's no, it's a no for sure.
And we also looked at how we could say no to environment and things so that you are placed in that right position to say a yes when it actually truly matters.
Fantastic. And you want to take us out? Not for coffee, as in like...
I will surely and absolutely do that. If you liked this episode, make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you could keep saying yes to watching Ashdin and I talk a little bit more about things. And we will see you guys in the next episode. And wait a second, hold on there. If you find something really difficult to say no to, let us know in the comments.
When we talk about investing in mutual funds, we often talk about compounding. And you know, across the episode, there has been one thread quietly running through the conversation. Whether we've spoken about habits, health, relationships, or money. And that's the idea of compounding. You invest a little, consistently, and over time with an aim of growing your investments. But what we often forget is that the mindset required for compounding money is the same mindset behind compounding value in life. Every no to spends is a tiny investment in your future wealth. It's you saying, this may not serve me today, so I choose something that will. Whether that's skipping that impulse purchase, avoiding a short-term hack, or declining yet another investment promising high returns overnight. Every time you resist that temptation, you are compounding clarity. The habit of saying no is not about control. It's about creating space. And in investing, just like in life, space is where growth happens. We've seen it with habits, with food, with friendships, with money. It all comes down to what are you saying yes to by saying no to something else. Every yes and every no is a deposit or a withdrawal. And the more intentionally you filter, the more you give yourself permission to grow, consistently, patiently, and powerfully. That's what the compounding mindset is all about.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.